I don't know if I'm ready. Well, we'll just see what happens. Because today I'm talking about a subject that is very controversial. So we shall see if you just go. If you're going, I'll kind of reword things or say something in place of. You just don't know these days. I have no idea. Right, okay, I'm ready.
Yep.
Hi, Gail here. Welcome to Radio Kidnappers, Voice of Hawke's Bay. I am a noetic scientist, psychic tarot card reader. I look into a whole lot of different areas of our lives, human, intuitive and spiritual. And today we have difficulty in some ways, but an easiness in other ways, where we are looking at dealing with COVID. And this is a contentious issue, but the people that I have been meeting with are people who are feeling pressured, intimidated into having perhaps a vaccine or losing their job. And this is the reality of our everyday now. It is something that I'd like to talk a little bit about, neither for or against. These are my views, so anything that is controversial to what you are feeling and thinking, absolutely your view is as valid as mine. Probably more valid because this is your personal health, it's your personal intuition, it's your personal viewpoint on things. The first thing that I would actually say to you is, one, there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear that motivates us into doing things in our everyday life, just normally and naturally. There's a lot of fear being kind of like built up around COVID and around the vaccine, which is the treatment for COVID. So your views on that matter. What I would say to you is, what if you knew nothing about conspiracy theories, if you knew nothing about it being the heal-all, if you knew nothing about any facts or any information at all about COVID, just that at the moment there is something that can affect our health on the planet. It is something that has a potential to be debilitating to us. It has a potential to be nasty and to then affect our health perhaps short or long term. If you just knew that, what would you do? Would you look for anything that would help that? Would you look for something that would help alleviate those harsher symptomologies? Or would you look for alternatives? There are alternatives. There are people out there in the health and healing field, the energy work field. You may not have heard of them, you may not know what they do, but now's a good time to be curious, especially if you're under pressure to conform and you're not knowing which way you want to go, or if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable about it. This is the time to perhaps look at, well, what else could help me potentially in the decision that I'm going to make to support my health, to support my well-being in a more sort of like holistic kind of way, in a more less fear-based way. There were a lot of things that I sort of looked at with this, because I've looked at it as well for myself, and I have neither this way or that way feelings. I can tell you that in the beginning I was not going to have it, didn't have a flu vaccine. We weren't immunised as children. The only immunisation that we had was for polio, and that was because my mother had a friend who had had polio. She saw the debilitating effects of that, so she got us all vaccinated. And it was only years later that I read an article in the newspaper that said about all of us born between these years that had the polio vaccine that was brought into New Zealand, knowing that it was contaminated with a monkey virus. And it said that we were all ticking time bombs, health-wise. Not anything you want to hear when I was pregnant at the time. But it was something that stuck in my mind because my mother had been so hot about us not being vaccinated for measles, chickenpox and mumps and letting our bodies to immunise ourselves. I haven't got a strong view one way or another about vaccines, just that for the flu one I just felt, nah, I'll be fine. So that was an instinct one. It wasn't based on a fear, if I don't get it I could get the flu. It was based on I think I'll be okay. Know my body enough and strong enough that we've got music playing in the background and it's all good. Apologies, but music's nice. Just means whatever this message is, how does it feel for you? Does it feel like one way or another that it doesn't really matter, but instinctively you go or feel maybe I do need it or maybe I don't need it? You know, what is your kind of feeling on that? Not about the information you've got, not about what could be happening in the world, what governments could be doing or anything like that. You elected to be on the planet right now at this time for a purpose. So you have a part to play in this whole dynamic of a world-joining epidemic where we are all in the same kind of space, dealing with the same kind of situation. And you have a part to play. What is your part? What are your feelings on this? And it's not your emotions. Remember, I've said to you before that there is a difference between emotions and feelings. Emotions we kind of feel more probably up in our chest, not necessarily, but more likely in our chest. Emotions are always a reaction to news, information, something that's happening to us in a situation. That's an emotional response. Emotions are cloudy. They do not give us clarity or truth. Feelings, however, are more here. It's just a knowing, it's just a sense of yes or no, okay? Sometimes it comes with quite a strong feeling in there. If it comes from here and you can clearly identify that it's your gut that is saying yes or no, then go with that. There's a reason for that. And it's individual to you as an individual, to every person as an individual. This is your life. This is your body. This is your experience. And you're not necessarily aware of the part that you are to play in this whole pandemic. But there is one, even if it's the smallest, littlest thing. Sometimes the smallest, littlest thing becomes the most profoundly world-changing thing. And I just want you to know that if you are also in a job where you are being pressured to have the vaccine and you're feeling upset about that, or annoyed about that, or fearful of that, I'd like you to sit, take a deep breath, breathe out. This takes a few minutes. Take a deep breath, breathe out, relax. Do that 3 or 4 times. And then ask yourself, is this right for me? Will this be helpful and beneficial to me? You only want to know the yes or the no on it. So go for what you're really preferring. And you're wanting things to be good for you, to be beneficial to you. If you still have the mind coming in, blah, 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 yes, but this, but maybe, what if, then you need to do that exercise maybe for a little bit longer, or maybe a little bit more often until you can settle with it. You need to be at a place of peace, one way or another. I've got some little things that could perhaps help, because we have the human side of us and we have the spiritual side of us. We also have the intuitive side. The spiritual side of us is this: you are perfect. You are 100% perfect in every way. And your perfection is reflected out into your world, into your life. Your body responds to how life has treated you, how you have experienced life. And so your physical being reflects how you've travelled through life, whether you've come through undamaged or not. People who have diseases have been a little bit bruised and battered by their lives. The spiritual you is never touched. The spiritual you is perfect 100% of the time. The spiritual of you knows the truth of all. And you don't remember this. It's not in your brain. It is over in this side of your brain, but it's not accessible in our everyday distractive world. The way that you can look at this, if you feel you have no choice, and please, you always have a choice. The most important thing is you have free will. You have a choice. If you choose not to have the vaccine, you already know that your job then is at risk. What you can do about that is find what else you could do. Look at other ways of working. Many people through lockdown started to look at working for themselves, working from home, finding ways they could work online rather than face-to-face with people. There are alternatives. You can find some way to work with whatever your choice is. The most important thing is, because there is so much fear around this, is not to feel that you have no choice, not to feel intimidated or bullied by this. And that's by others around you as well. What I would say to people who have a vaccine, when you face someone who hasn't got a vaccine, just know that you've done what you can to protect yourself, and you are more protected than they are. You should feel for them and feel sorry for them, perhaps, that they are less protected in the scheme of what protection is, and not antagonised toward them. I always had this thing about vaccines, and it was that if you're vaccinated, you're safe. So why are you afraid still of people who aren't vaccinated? I could never psychologically get around that in my head. People who choose not to be vaccinated have very valid reasons, perhaps. They have very valid intuitive feelings, perhaps, that it could perhaps be a disadvantage to them rather than an advantage to them. And I'm a great believer in everyone has freedom of choice, whatever their choice is, and whether it's religion, politics, whatever it is, they have very valid reasons to actually believe what they believe. And we all live together on the planet. If you feel that you might be ostracised by not having the vaccine, and so being social is very important to you, you need to factor that consideration in as well. It's a brave stand to stand outside the norm of what people expect and what people want. As I said before, you are on the planet at this time. You have some part to play, whatever that part is. Just feel that it is your choice. Feel at peace with your choice. You do not have to justify yourself. You just have to know it as a truth. There's one thing about human beings that I know, that no matter how far away we are from our spiritual being, we recognise truth when we hear it. There is a lot of information out there that has led us to believe certain things. if we have the knowledge that there is other information out there that has not been shared with us, and that maybe that information would give us a more, in a broader view of things, then we know that there's an unknown aspect. So that the truth we're seeing is not all the truth. It's just maybe parts of the truth. And if it doesn't feel right, it's because it's not. Human beings are not stupid. We're not silly people. Human beings actually know when the wool is being pulled over their eyes. They know when the truth is being skewed around for some agenda or some purpose. Human beings know this inherently. That is your instinct, by the way. That is your deeper knowledge. That is the spiritual you that is the knower of everything. You are, as a spiritual being, all knowledgeable as well as 100% perfect. Your humanness covers this over. Your human experiences cover it over more. We react to what makes us feel afraid, what makes us or helps us feel safe. It's really a big deal at the moment with all of this going on. I will say though too, I am hoping to have somebody come on this show within the next month or two and they have something of a different approach. This is not new by any means in the world. It is a different approach. It is becoming more of a sought after approach. We have many leaders in their fields that have been working since the 80s, the 90s, yes, which means they're a little bit older, that have useful, helpful information that has been around for a lot longer than just our modern day information around healing, around health, around what was used way back in the day, all of those kinds of things. We have freedom of choice. Sorry, I have to say that again. Now, perspective is another thing that I would like to talk about. If you feel that you have been or will be pressured into doing something you do not want to do, there is a way you can look at it that's different to the one that you are arguing with yourself right now. Let's just say the vaccine. Okay, so there's a lot of hype around it, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation and everything else. And so therefore there's a lot of fear. If you have felt that you've needed to have the vaccine to keep others happy, to keep your job, and that was your choice, then you can look at it in a way where, and this is what I prefer to do, if it comes to that for myself, I am looking at it being that I will be injected with some sort of health booster shot, like a vitamin booster shot, that will actually help my health, help my body heal, help my body rejuvenate in positive ways. You know, we don't know much about health. We don't know much about this body or its capabilities, but this body is pretty miraculous. It can heal itself without you even thinking about it. And it does. When you cut yourself, we don't expect any kind of miracle. We just go, oh, that'll heal itself. A bruise, same sort of thing, broken bone. The body knows what to do. It's not under our control of going heal, heal, heal. It is helped by that. But it does it itself. So this mechanism is a miraculous mechanism. If you could view this booster shot in being something that is harmless as saline, as harmless as water, as harmless as anything, then that can work. It does go on how you believe and what you believe and whether you can see it as being actually and embrace it as being health-giving to you. There was something that I put this perspective out to my group at one point that, you know, it's changed the way you look at it because it changes the result. If you change the way you look at it, it changes the result. If you look at it as being health-giving, that's how it can be. I put it out there for myself that if that came to the point and I needed to, then this is what I would like it to do, and I would like it to be that it would actually help any health problem that I've got. It was only about 3 or 4 days later. I'd never said anything to anybody about what I put out as far as, my husband, or, I said to group they could look at it that way. But I looked at something, he just holds his phone up for me to look at things every now and again, randomly. He doesn't say anything, he just holds the phone up. And here on the phone said that the COVID vaccine has seemed to be reducing cancer tumours and to help people with autoimmune deficiency diseases. I thought, right, validation, absolutely, it is possible. We don't see a lot about the positive effects of it, but there are. And think about that. On that note, I'm hoping that we may have a guest in the middle of next month that can help show you some alternative to and insight into other sort of like spiritual things. So on that note, namaste, take care. Choose to feel no pressure. Take care.